I'm 63. I type with two fingers, and I figured this out, which means pretty much any of us can. And what I mean by this, I mean AI, and basically guaranteed myself at least a couple more years of employment until my board finally gets fed up with me and fires me, which has happened before. So it could happen again. I hope not. I'm all in on AI. I'm the CEO of Section. We're a venture-backed AI accelerator for companies. I'm the founder and chairman of Machine and Partners, an AI development lab. I write a newsletter called Personal Math along with Taylor, one of my partners in crime at Section. I'm launching a YouTube podcast soon called AI Truth Serum, and I joined the adjunct faculty at Berkeley Haas School of Business here in Northern California to teach AI. So obviously, I'm all in. My goals today, this is basically the agenda. It is to calm you and kick your ass. That is what I want to accomplish in the next 50 minutes. I want to calm you and encourage you, motivate you to get in fighting shape. We'll do this together. So share your insights, share your knowledge, share what you're doing and what you've seen be successful in terms of adding value and diminishing the risk to AI in terms of your livelihood. This is what I'm telling my leaders as they plan for next year. So we're getting into that time of year where we plan for next year. And what I'm telling them, and I just told my two go-to-market leaders, my head of marketing and my head of revenue, don't come to me with a human-only plan. Just even if you're not serious about AI, now they probably can't be if they're going to work at Section, but at least fool me into thinking that you want to build a plan that has AI and humans working together. But I've told all my leaders as you build your plans for next year, we're building plans to accommodate a 5x growth next year. So we are going to be doing a bunch of hiring, and we actually have 9 open positions right now. But I've told my team, I don't want to see human-only plan. Why? Well, I've got a little bit of FOMO, right? I don't want to scale my business the old way, and there is this new way of scaling businesses, and I'm hearing about it. I'm experiencing it myself. I'm reading about it. I'm talking to other founders and CEOs. So I want to make sure that we don't get left out. We always get gains from AI. We've been implementing a lot of AI internally at Section for the last 2 years. We always get some gains, not always the ones we expect, and not 100% in terms of, stuff fails and doesn't work. But I always get gains, so I want more of those gains. I want my humans, my team, working on the highest value work. So I do expect plans. And in this case, as I said, it's the go-to-market teams at Section. I want plans where they will get their best people working on the highest value activities and tasks. And then finally, people are expensive. So if we can save money and grow more efficiently and grow more capital efficiently, why would I not want to do that? Well, here's what I've also told the team, what I've told the whole company. I don't think we can, if you're a leader, get away with not talking about this. A lot of leaders are right now. I think it's disingenuous. If you're a leader, I think you've got to say something. Here's what I say, and feel free to borrow this. I think it's a pretty honest statement or point of view as to where we're at right now, which is what I've told the team is I don't have a crystal ball. We are going to implement as much AI as we can, more AI. We're actually going to be hiring a head of AI for Section for our internal efforts. That shows the level of acceleration I expect around using AI tools. And what I've told the team, the whole company, is some teams will be smaller next year. Some teams will likely be the same size, but producing more. Some teams will be bigger because their AI makes the team that much more effective, and I want more of it. And we are adding roles that did not exist. I don't know exactly how each team will work out, but I do share this with the company and remind them every quarter, this is sort of our reality. We're in this together, figuring this out, and there will be impacts on jobs. It doesn't necessarily mean go away, but it certainly means jobs changing. The inside of the job is absolutely changing. And I would say almost everybody, including Maxwell, has had their job change, and they've added responsibilities, they've dropped responsibilities. In the case of Maxwell, I've seen her flex pretty significantly in terms of her role, which is really exciting at Section. I think that's happening with a lot of people at Section and in AI native startups or teams. So let's talk about the pundits first of all. Let's ground ourselves in what the so-called experts have been saying. it's about augmenting humans. Well, maybe depends on the company. Some companies will want to replace humans with AI. That AI could wipe out half of white collar jobs. Dario hasn't been right with one prediction yet. Every prediction he makes, his most recent was how much this will impact software engineers. He was wrong again. AI will reduce headcounts. The company gets scrappier. Yeah, maybe. And you're also probably, Andy Jassy, blaming AI for, frankly, your over hiring and headquarters bloat, which you're now and have been dealing with in terms of reducing headcount. I think Louis von Ahn is a little more realistic. In a growing firm, AI probably means that people will be able to accomplish more rather than having fewer people. Again, I think that would happen mostly in growing firms. Mature or stagnant firms, I think, will use AI to try to become more efficient, which of course is code for less people. If I were 22 right now, I'd feel the luckiest kid in all of history, says Sam Altman. Yeah, maybe, assuming I can land a job to start my career and that early career ladder has not been smoked by AI. And of course, these longer term, or maybe they're harder to make, these predictions, because this one was made 10 years ago. What are you talking about? And here's another one made recently in a complete contradiction to the previous one. Like, what? So listen, the bottom line is don't listen to pundits. And I'm not a pundit today, just for the record. So you need to listen to me. So don't listen to pundits. No one knows what's happening right now on the ground. Well, we have a robust but shaky economy. There is a softening labor market, and yeah, sure, you can fire the people coming up with the data, but the data is the data, and the labor market is softening. We are seeing layoffs since 2020. It's the highest level so far in 2025. And we are seeing a lot of misleading headlines, basically headlines blaming AI, essentially. It's a convenient media narrative. But the reality is, at least according to this recent research, AI is not yet the driver. Government and uncertainty around government spending and government programs, market conditions, lots of reasons. AI is on the list, but it's not yet a big cited factor in terms of layoffs. Not yet, at least. Okay, so what's happening now on the ground, not at the economic level, but at the job level, at the livelihood level? We know what's going on. You have all heard this before. Repetitive language-based roles are at risk, and we, at least anecdotally, all of us probably have anecdotes and some connection to someone who's been impacted in some way. Again, maybe not laid off, but their role is changing, or the expectations have gone up for their performance, or the expectation of the amount of work they're supposed to produce based on access to AI tools. Makes sense. We are seeing in very narrow and specific cases, like translators, it's bad. That role has been deeply impacted, and those livelihoods were almost immediately impacted by generative AI. We have seen this in terms of data programmers over the last 2 years, a drop in demand. This, you might think about this as the entry level of sort of software work, or technology work. Data programming, data entry makes sense. This is work that AI can do faster, sooner, more reliably than actual software coding. And there has been a drop in demand for data programmers. We are seeing the first impacts on customer service. And again, we all know this. We've heard about this, call centers. And then we've either been frustrated by humans who've been following scripts and acting as bots, or we've been frustrated by bots because they can't handle our requests. But the reality is, this is a role where we've asked humans to behave as machines, and now we are replacing them with the machines. And it's probably the right thing to do for everybody, assuming those humans can find work, can transition their roles. I also think within every function that is deeply impacted by AI, there will be some reinvention of the function, and there will be some reinvention of roles that are likely more valuable and more strategic. And I think that will happen in customer service and success. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to pivot out of this career choice or track right away. For many, it probably means you should. But for some, if you love it and if you're good at it, and you want to innovate within that role or within that function, there's probably room for you, because all of customer service is not going away. Clearly, the machines are being introduced and will clearly still need humans. This was an interesting study. It was recent. It was 70,000 job screens, interviews for a call center in the Philippines. So we know that job is highly robotic in terms of the call center. Well, the screening of candidates for the call center is also a very high volume, sort of repetitive manual task. And they gave these candidates one of three choices, or not choices, they served up either a human interviewer, a bot interviewer, an AI interviewer, or the candidate could choose. The results, when measured later, showed that the AI did better than the humans, that the more job offers were made by the AI than the humans, more candidates turned up for work when the offer was made by the bot versus the human. And after 30 days, more candidates were still in their seat at the call center when they were chosen by AI and the offer was made by AI than humans. And most importantly, gender bias was halved by the AI. And humans reported that they felt the AI did a better job of interviewing them, giving them more time to speak and express themselves. So only one study, a very narrow use case, interviewing call center applicants, but again, a role where such high volume, where the bar for human performance is not that high, and at least in this case, the AI cleared it. Two studies recently, one's been talked about a lot, one's been not so talked about. This is the Harvard one, not so talked about. This is about a week old, thereabouts. They looked at 350,000 companies for 10 years. They identified 10,000, just over 10,000 companies that were more AI forward. And they did that by looking at how many people worked at the company in AI roles. So it was a large data set of employers across all sizes of organizations. They identified the more AI forward organizations. So they made an assumption that that meant that that organization was deploying AI. And then they looked at hiring jobs data across all those companies. The more AI forward companies, 10,500 approximately, were hiring less junior people over the last 10 years. That jives with this study that came out last week from a team of 3 at Stanford that looked also at a lot of data. They looked at millions of ADP employment, a data set of millions of people from ADP in terms of employment data over the last 2 years primarily. And what they saw was that demand for young customer service hires was lower, not necessarily surprising. I would consider this shocking, though, the next data point, that 20% less demand for young software engineers. Weirdly, perhaps, counterintuitively, though, 2 other data points. The hiring rate for senior people in both roles was maintained. So the more expensive employee or candidate was hired, and the less expensive candidate was hired at a slower rate. The also surprising data point was that salary data for the young engineers or the young customer service reps was unchanged. So there's a little bit of a confounding data point. You'd normally expect to see the compensation drop before the hiring slowed, meaning you'd pay the same people less money rather than stop hiring them. So listen, I think it's early days. This is an important study. It was done with rigor, with a lot of data. I'd say primarily small and medium-sized business, which is where ADP primarily has its business, and that was the payroll data they used from ADP. I think there's some impact of AI here, for sure. I think there's some impact of a weakening economy and uncertainty in the economic outlook as the tariffs are biting and the unemployment numbers look worse. I also think, frankly, that this could be an indictment of our college graduates and our colleges, not our graduates. This might be employers beginning to say, I'll take seniors over junior people that really don't know much about work yet. And even if I think they might be more AI enabled, they're really just not ready to work, and I'll pay a little more and take someone who's more senior. Again, the media will jump on this as AI is killing early career jobs and we're selling the future of our kids to the AI companies? I'm not so sure. We need some more data, but obviously we got to pay attention to this stuff. And I tend to agree with Matt Garman, AWS CEO, that replacing junior employees with AI is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I want more AI native kids in my company. I want them coming in with a growth mindset and ambition and a level of AI familiarity that will exceed my 35-year-old employees. Okay, so that's the data so far that we can see. And there's other studies, and if you know of them and you think they're credible, feel free to drop them in chat. But that's the research and data that I've been paying attention to the last few months. So what about the rest of us, not necessarily covered in these studies, and or if we're not early career? So listen, we are canaries in a coal mine. We all are in terms of knowledge work. AI is getting smarter. Agentic workflows are getting more possible. This is the time horizon of software engineering tasks that can be completed 80% of the time. So these models are improving in terms of working or thinking longer and still completing the task. The cost of cognition is going in different directions, meaning that we're humans getting more expensive, and the cost of AI, the cost of inference continues to drop significantly, particularly in the case of the recent GPT-5 token costs. So this is not good for humans as we continue to cost more, primarily due to inflation. And AI, as we know, is being priced to sell, meaning it's being priced to get us hooked on AI. And so one day they can charge us more later. So in general, you look at the last 10 years, knowledge workers have been getting more expensive. And frankly, AI companies see a big opportunity. This has been a consumer and small business revolution, but ultimately large companies will need to pay most of the bill for AI. And if you're an AI company, you're looking at, in the US alone, 70 million knowledge workers, average salary of around 85 to 90,000, a $6 trillion annual market. When I say market, what I mean is that's the spend on the knowledge workforce. And I think the AI companies are very pragmatic, thinking that if they can make companies more efficient, save companies headcount expense, then we'll pay for their AI. And I think the harsh reality is the market over time won't pay for humans to do work that can be done for a fraction of a cent. And as Moghaddad has been saying for a couple of years, the reality is knowledge work now, for the first time, safe jobs are not safe anymore because AI will touch many parts of the business. We can see here that it's growing inside of companies that are deploying. Deployment's been a struggle, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk more later this year about this. Enterprise deployment is not going well, but it's beginning to move across functions. It typically starts in one, often in the software engineering function or the marketing or the sales function, language-intensive parts of the business, and then it does begin to move across different functions inside the same organization, because AI is moving up the org chart, both across the org chart and up the org chart as its capabilities improve. And using AI is not enough anymore as an edge. I think this idea that AI won't take your job and someone else will who's using AI is kind of bullshit. I think it's important today for all of us to be using AI. I don't think there's any excuse now that we're 2.5 years in that you're not experimenting every day with AI in your own personal workflows. I think it offers some measure of comfort right now for you, but not enough. I don't think that's enough in terms of sort of being AI enabled, and we'll talk more about that. If your daily output is easily specified, pattern-based or low context, AI will probably do it in the next 5 years, first with your help and then later without it, depending on your employer. Okay, let's assess your risk. That's what we want to do next. We want to help you manage your risk and manage really to the upside where you want to be. So I think you've got to start by doing some diagnosis. I'm sure you've already done some of this or you've thought about it, but I do think if you haven't or haven't done it in an intentional way, it's a good moment in the next few weeks to sit down and do this. Really look at your role, look at your outcomes, or look at your tasks and then your outcomes. Look at what you're responsible for, how to spend your time. Look at how you generate value and keep your boss happy. And sort of map that out and really understand where you can see AI playing or where it may already be playing, effectively or not. So we're not looking, we're looking for both answers, because what I want us to do is plot our risk. The percent of tasks that are repeatable and language based is one axis. The other axis is how much of your role and how much of your value of the output you create is judgment based or based on sort of leading, aligning, communicating with others, those human skills. What I want you to do is plot, we'll do it today. All of us will do it today. Plot ourselves on this 2x2. So if you're high-low, you're going to be AI resistant for now. That's a good thing. AI can't do too much of your work, if any, because at the core of what you do is judgment, and you're probably today in good shape. If you're bottom right, you have very high risk. AI can already do most of the job well enough. And often when AI can't do the job as well, it can do it so much faster and so much cheaper that that's good enough for the employer. So I do find sometimes when I talk to humans, real people, they say, oh, well, AI can't do it like as well as I can do it. Well, sometimes that's not the benchmark. The benchmark is going to be good enough, but a dramatically higher volume, faster pace, and lower cost. And the employer will take that. And frankly, so will clients as well in some cases, not all. If you're bottom left, you're stable for now, the risk is probably medium. AI can't do much yet, but could shift as these technologies improve. And we'll see how much these technologies improve in the next year. I think we'd all agree GPT-5 was a decent but not mind-blowing upgrade or improvement. And Sam Altman's already downplaying expectations for GPT-6, which might imply these technologies aren't advancing as fast as they were in 2023 and 2024. And of course, your upper right, you're also got medium risk, but I'd say medium risk that could move faster to be higher risk or higher opportunity, which is AI is able to augment you. We need humans, obviously, in these roles, but there's still, there's going to be an integration required faster in the AI augmentation sector or segment. So if you're upper left, stay calm. If you're bottom right, pivot yesterday. Or as I said earlier, for example, if you're in customer service, commit to be the very best, commit to evolve that role. That if you're in a leadership role, for example, and if you're the one as a leader integrating AI into the delivery of customer service, my guess is you have a job for years, because a lot of AI is going to be introduced into customer service, and you can be the architect and strategist for that. That's probably a good place to be versus lower down that depth chart. If you're bottom left, you're stable. Watch and be ready. And if you're upper right, it's time to become super. And we'll talk about what that means today. I think you've got to be very vigilant and very active. I want you working in that space, if you will, if that's the space you're in. By the way, use AI to help. Grab this prompt. If you're not a member, do a quick screenshot. So I'll leave it up for another few seconds. Get some help from AI to do some brainstorming here, and AI can help you with this prompt, tell you where you're at or where you might be in the future. By the way, you could adjust that prompt by saying, do it now, and then predict in 12 months where I might be, right? Or you could also do it in 12 months. Again, do the exercise probably once or twice a year, but certainly you can ask AI to sort of map this journey out for you in terms of what your risk may or may not be. And again, risk also creates opportunities. I don't want to always just focus on the risk. I think there's three paths forward for most of us, not all of us, but for most of us, particularly those in that quadrant of the upper right, AI augment. Get out of knowledge work or don't get into it. That's an option. Even if you're in that quadrant, or certainly if you're in the lower right, or you're entering the workforce, there's a lot of jobs and a lot of economic value, a lot of economic wealth being created by AI, but in the, what people often refer to is the picks and shovels part of AI, which of course includes things like data centers. Manual skills are in high demand, and if we have time to talk about the role of education and what our kids should do, this is clearly one really viable path for a lot of people to enjoy a long and productive livelihood in terms of manual tasks. The other is to go all in on AI. We don't know how many jobs yet will be created, but we can start to see significant volumes of job postings of jobs like these, where No one had these jobs 2 years ago. So you're at almost no disadvantage. This is a short learning curve which you can climb rapidly and make yourself qualified to be the winning applicant in these kinds of jobs. So for some of us, that might seem exciting, might sound fun, and is a smart kind of career pivot or career move. And for the rest of us, again, probably most of us in this moment, I think it's time to become super. Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, said this 2 weeks ago at an earnings call. This idea of a crazy efficient revolution. This is hyperbole in terms of what he's proposing. He's proposing that Palantir could 10x its revenue and stay essentially headcount flat. Don't think it's possible, but I think it indicates what's his mindset is, and of course, what he's trying to communicate to Wall Street in terms of the future profitability and earnings of this company. But I think his point of view is being certainly reflected across Silicon Valley, and that's eventually moving into the rest of industry, the rest of corporate America. This idea of how quickly can we become more efficient. And if that's the case, I think what's really happening here is this idea of super companies. We're seeing a few, Anthropic, OpenAI, Palantir, C3.ai, every startup. I would consider Section, our little startup, a super company. We are just infused with AI, always experimenting, adding new AIs, adding new AI workflows. As I said already, changing people's roles to flex into different responsibilities. We are trying to be more headcount efficient than ever and grow faster than ever. Super companies, today it's easy to start a startup and become a super company relatively quickly. It's super leaders, super ICs or super employees with a giant cable out the back plugged into AI. Multiple AIs likely. This is not the case in corporate America. I spend most of my time talking to corporate America, large organizations. I spent the morning at a 22,000 person company. They don't have a giant cable out the back plugged into AI yet, right? It's going slower for larger organizations. Super companies, though, are coming. They're going to be the most valuable companies in the world. They are attracting currently the most investor capital. I think inside of those companies, we all have a choice. Be a super employee or be a super leader. I want you intentionally to pick one of these two personas or archetypes. I want you to do that like today. Really commit to being a super employee, a 2Xer, or a super leader, someone who takes a team and turns a team into a super team. Either of these two employees, I think, have long-term job security. Super employees automate your baseline work. You stretch yourself and extend beyond your core capabilities and skills into adjacent skills and capabilities, and therefore adjacent tasks and output. These are the employees I want to hire. These are the super employees of the super ICs. Super leaders, managers of teams, they do these three things primarily. They reorient their role, their definition of themselves as a manager to define a new way of working. They set the AI manifesto for the team. They set the operating culture for the team that incorporates AI. They get the AI tools. They fight with the CFO, whoever it is, to find the budget to get the tools, and they remove blockers. Secondly, they are committed to relentless experimentation. They encourage their teams to run lots of AI pilots and experiments, and they manage the team to manage a high failure rate, meaning they're not discouraged by AI pilots or experiments that fail, because many of them do. And you need leaders that are resilient and take the team through those failures to find the things that work. And finally, the super leaders act as accelerants. They push. They set a high bar. They speed up decisions. They speed up experiments, and they really push the team to flex beyond current capabilities into, again, adjacent work streams or adjacent outcomes. Those are the leaders that I want. So I think that, again, the future is super companies inside of which will be super IC, super employees, and super leaders. I want you to be one of those two personas. Get busy. We can start this now. Skill audit, scope expansion. Where can you experiment? How can you get visibility if you work in an organization for your experiments? And who else can you lean on and support and learn from inside your organization? Either whether you're an employee or a leader, find your tribe inside your organization, and you know, and you'll be seen as untouchable inside the organization. Again, use AI to help. Grab this prompt. Provide great context. Your role, your goals, your team, your LinkedIn profile, even a recent performance review. Provide AI with a lot of context, and work with AI as a thought partner around how could you be a super IC? What would a super IC look like inside of your team and organization, or a super leader or manager? And then build a 90-day plan. And ask AI to keep the plan practical, tactical, and specific to your role. So grab this prompt. AI is a very effective thought partner to do this kind of work. It's always led to new jobs. You've seen this slide. I'm sick of it. But I had to show it because it's true. It is what happens. Innovation has led to employment, both in industries and across our economy. We do have so many jobs today that did not exist in 1940. We all get that. I don't think it's going to take 50 years this time, though. I think that everything is happening faster. I don't think it's 3 years, though, or 5 years. I think this is taking longer, in part because we're getting in the way of ourselves. This kind of change runs right away into organizational intransigence, basically, whether that be governmental or corporate. So I don't think this will take 50 years, but it's not going to happen overnight either. And you can see versions of this data. We track it very carefully at Section. That AI adoption by larger companies obviously has been climbing, but it's also not plateauing, but certainly slowing. And this is a good thing, I think, for all of us, meaning these technologies are clearly getting better faster than we can incorporate them or integrate them into our work lives, certainly for larger organizations where a lot of jobs are. Not the only place, but a lot of jobs. Of course, a lot of jobs are in small companies in the US. So I think we've got time, which is why I don't want you panicking. Final thoughts. You're mostly on your own out there. We're not a great economy or society as it relates to helping our citizens retool themselves for the future. But the good news is we've got YouTube. We've got Prof.ai. And if you're a consumer, you get it for free. So go to Prof.ai. If you're new to AI and want to become AI proficient, use Prof.ai. We charge companies and teams. We don't charge individuals. We want 1 million people to take advantage of Prof.ai at our expense in terms of consumers and individuals. So you are on your own, meaning your employer will help, but likely not as much as they should. But again, you can fill the gaps. We've all said this for years. I just think it's getting even more important. This is not a unique thing. We want employees that are resilient, that are flexible, that have agility. We said this during COVID in 2020. We're saying it again. And all I can tell you is that's my experience of my team at Section. I can see the rate of change that we're undergoing inside of Section in terms of roles and tasks and responsibilities. It's very quick. It's rapid. And I see some who are struggling and some who are really are kind of enjoying it and taking advantage of it. And I think that's got to do with mindset. It's got to do with sort of flexibility, agility, resilience. I don't have a better answer here except to say, I think this is sort of the way it's going to be as it relates to knowledge work, at least for the next 10 years, maybe forever, so to speak. Don't make your boss pick. I wanted to highlight this. Tacit knowledge, how things work, how process works, how things get done, how business works, how products get made or clients get served. That is typically comes with experience, right? We think about this person as 35 to 55. They have a tremendous amount of tacit knowledge. It's incredibly valuable to employers. At the same time, we want people with that resilience, innovation, agility. We want growth mindset. And I would say right now, a lot of employers want to find this kind of AI growth mindset or this tech forward growth mindset. Right now, I think there's sort of a choice, and maybe that's what was going on in the Stanford data, in that employers for now said, we'll take people with more experience, more tacit knowledge. And maybe the assumption is we can sort of teach them the new tools. And if you're younger and don't have this tacit knowledge yet, because you can't necessarily have it because you're early in your career, you must bring the AI growth mindset as a minimum. You must show up as fully AI enabled for the under the age of 30. And by the way, acquire as much knowledge or experience as you can. I know it's hard, but internships, unpaid or paid, hopefully paid, side projects, working for someone, a friend of the family's business, whatever it is, even just working with AI to raise your own knowledge of whatever role or function or job you think you might want. This idea of tacit knowledge, employers need both right now. And I think if you're older, acquire your AI growth mindset. You're going to be in a good position. And if you're younger, you're hopefully starting with the AI growth mindset and do as much as you can to become savvy about business. I know that's hard, especially if you're first generation business. A lot of people are joining the knowledge economy for the first time in terms of their family, and it's harder for you, and I know that. But do what you can so employers don't have to make that tough choice. Don't panic and don't stand still. That's the last slide.